Hello, viewers. My name is Liam Smith. Today, we have 3 scary stories about Long Drive, so let's get started. Story number 1. On a chilling October night, somewhere deep in the heart of the United States, the pale moon cast eerie shadows across a lonely stretch of road. The wind howled through the gnarled branches of ancient trees that lined the roadside, making the scene all the more haunting. This was a night when the veil between the living and the dead seemed to blur, and the stories whispered in hushed tones at campfires became real. Our story begins with a group of friends who decided to embark on a midnight road trip through the heartland of America. In their trusty vehicle, they set off on an adventure filled with excitement, laughter, and a hint of trepidation. October nights were known for their ghostly allure, and the group was eager to experience the thrill. The winding road stretched ahead, and the only illumination came from the car's headlights. As they cruised through the darkness, a dense fog began to roll in, shrouding the surroundings in a milky mist. The once clear road now seemed to vanish into an abyss, and the friends felt an uneasy tension settle in the car. But the thrill-seekers continued their journey, unfazed by the growing unease. Little did they know that their adventure was about to take a terrifying turn. As the fog thickened, strange things began to happen. The car radio, which had been playing a lively tune, suddenly crackled and emitted a series of garbled voices. The friends exchanged nervous glances, and one of them reached out to turn the radio off, only to have it turn itself back on with a loud burst of static. The driver, a fearless soul named John, clenched his hands on the steering wheel. He was known for his prowess behind the wheel, having raced in some of the most prestigious events in the country. But now, even he couldn't deny the unsettling atmosphere. Just as the radio troubles began, the group noticed peculiar figures lurking in the mist at the roadside. Shadowy forms moved in and out of view, their eyes glowing with an eerie, ethereal light. The friends squinted through the fog, but the figures remained elusive, like specters from another world. "Keep driving, John," one of them urged, her voice quivering. "We're probably just seeing things." John nodded, trying to convince himself that it was just their overactive imaginations. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. As they continued down the road, the fog grew denser, and the strange apparitions became more pronounced. The figures seemed to be beckoning the group into the darkness, their whispers carried on the wind. "Turn back!" another friend shouted, her panic evident. "This doesn't feel right." But John was determined to press on. He had a reputation to uphold as one of America's most fearless drivers, and he refused to be spooked by mere shadows and fog. It was then that they heard it, a haunting melody that seemed to resonate from the very depths of the fog, a mournful tune that sent shivers down their spines. The source of the music remained hidden, but its presence was undeniable. The road ahead seemed to stretch endlessly, and the fog showed no sign of dissipating. John's grip on the wheel tightened, his knuckles turning white. The friends, now gripped by fear, begged him to turn around, but he was resolute. And then a figure materialized in the middle of the road, a figure that could not be ignored. It was a spectral woman, dressed in a flowing white gown, her long hair obscuring her face. She stood with her arms outstretched, beckoning them to a halt. John slammed on the brakes, and the car screeched to a halt just inches from the eerie apparition. The friends were paralyzed with fear, unable to move or speak. The woman in white slowly lifted her head, and her face came into view. Her eyes were empty voids, and her mouth contorted into a grotesque, silent scream. In an instant, she lunged at the car, passing through the windshield as if it were not there. The friends screamed in terror as the apparition enveloped them, and the world around them dissolved into a nightmarish void. The next morning, the news of the disappearance of John, the famous American driver, and his friends shocked the nation. The police found their abandoned car on the same winding road, its engine still running, but the occupants had vanished without a trace. The legend of that fateful October night drive became a part of American folklore. Some claimed that the restless spirits of the road had claimed John and his friends, while others believed that it was a warning to those who dared to challenge the unknown. To this day, the road remains a place where few dare to tread after dark, and John's name is forever etched in the annals of America's most famous drivers. A chilling reminder that there are some things in this world that are better left undisturbed, especially on an eerie October night drive along the roads of the United States. Story number 2. On a crisp October night in the heart of the United States, a chilling tale unfolded along a deserted stretch of highway. Our story revolves around John Anderson, a name that sends shivers down the spines of those who know him best. John, one of the country's most famous long-haul truck drivers, was a man of few words and even fewer fears. But this fateful October night would test his courage in ways he could never have imagined. The air was thick with the scent of fallen leaves, and the moon cast eerie shadows on the asphalt road that stretched out before John. He had been on the road for days, transporting goods from one end of the country to another, as he often did. This particular night, he found himself cruising down an unfamiliar highway with only his radio for company. The radio crackled with static, and the playlist of old country tunes did little to dispel the growing unease John felt. The road was long, and the only source of light came from his truck's headlights. The forest that lined the highway seemed to press in on him, the trees whispering secrets that he couldn't quite decipher. As he continued to drive, John's attention was drawn to a figure standing at the side of the road. The shape was vague, and at first he dismissed it as a trick of the mind. But as he approached, the figure became more distinct. It was a young woman, drenched in rain, her long, tangled hair obscuring her face. John, being the compassionate man he was, couldn't leave her stranded on this desolate road. He slowed his truck and pulled over, the tires crunching on the wet gravel. The woman approached, her frail form shivering in the cold. John rolled down his window and offered her a kind smile, asking, "You need a lift, Ma'am?" The woman didn't reply but climbed into the passenger seat, still drenched and silent. John continued down the road, and as he glanced over at his mysterious passenger, he noticed her pallid skin and the cold, vacant look in her eyes. Something about her unsettled him, and he decided to strike up a conversation. "Where are you headed?" he asked, trying to break the eerie silence. Still, the woman remained silent, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. John's unease deepened, and he accelerated, hoping to reach the next town as soon as possible. But the woman's presence seemed to fill the cab of the truck with an unsettling energy. As they continued down the highway, John's eyes were drawn to a car up ahead, parked haphazardly on the side of the road. The car was old and battered, its doors hanging open as if abandoned in a hurry. John had an ominous feeling, but he couldn't ignore the possibility that the woman had been in distress. He pulled over once again, this time near the abandoned car, and turned to her. "Is that your car?" he inquired, his voice trembling slightly. The woman finally turned her head, her eyes locking onto John's with an intensity that sent a chill down his spine. She whispered, "That was my car." Before John could react, the woman lunged at him with inhuman speed, her fingers digging into his flesh. Panic surged through his veins as he fought to break free from her grasp. With a Herculean effort, he managed to shove her out of the truck and slammed the door shut, his heart pounding in his chest. Without looking back, John floored the gas pedal and sped away from the abandoned car and the mysterious woman. As he glanced in his rearview mirror, he could see her standing by the side of the road, her long, wet hair hanging like a curtain around her face. Hours passed, and John finally reached the next town, his heart still pounding with fear. He parked his truck in a well-lit, crowded area and decided to report the strange encounter to the local authorities. The police listened intently, but they had no record of any accidents or missing persons in the area. Finally, as the first light of dawn broke on the horizon, John's truck rolled into his own driveway. He had never been so relieved to be home, but the terror of that October night continued to haunt him. He stepped out of the truck, hoping to put the nightmarish encounter behind him, but as he turned to lock the door, he froze. His truck, which had been his faithful companion on countless journeys, was no longer there. In its place was the battered car he had seen on the side of the road, the one the mysterious woman had claimed as her own. How could this be? The horror of that October night on the American road would forever be etched in John's memory. He never found answers to the questions that tormented him, and the forest's whispered secrets remained a chilling enigma. John could never explain how he had returned home without his truck, but he knew one thing for certain. He would never forget the woman with the haunted eyes and the abandoned car on that eerie October night drive. Story number 3. On a chilling October night in the heartland of the United States, where the amber leaves fell like whispers from ghostly trees and a mist clung to the roads like the lingering memories of the departed, an adventure awaited. Our tale takes place on a dimly lit stretch of highway, weaving its way through the heart of America's heartland, a place where urban legend and folklore come to life. The protagonist, let's call him John, embarks on a night drive filled with terror and mystery that will forever haunt his memories. John, a seasoned traveler with an affinity for the paranormal, had heard tales of the infamous winding roads of Nebraska, an eerie highway known for its sinister reputation. Curiosity got the better of him one fateful October night. He decided to document his journey through the heart of Nebraska, recording it for his YouTube channel, Midnight Mysteries. As the sun dipped below the horizon, John, camera in hand, set off on his journey. The sky was a deep shade of indigo, and the air grew progressively colder as he ventured further into the unknown. He found himself on Route 666, a number that sent shivers down the spines of anyone who'd ever heard of its sinister associations. This was said to be the most haunted highway in America, and it was in the heart of Nebraska, of all places. The road was unending, like a ribbon of darkness slicing through the desolate plains. The silence was deafening, broken only by the occasional eerie rustle of leaves and the faint, ghostly wail of the wind. John's camera, fixed on the dashboard, captured every eerie moment. An hour into his journey, he stumbled upon the ghost town of Delphi, where the once bustling streets were now lined with decaying, long-abandoned buildings. He couldn't resist exploring the remnants of a bygone era, but it was as if the town itself was eager to tell its story. Unearthly moans echoed through the desolation, and the flickering streetlights cast eerie shadows that seemed to dance and sway. As he delved further into the town, a chilling mist began to envelop him, making it nearly impossible to see beyond a few feet. Panic set in as John felt a presence behind him. He whipped around, his camera capturing nothing but the opaque mist. Heart pounding, he moved on, not daring to look back. John's next destination was the famously haunted Whistler's Bridge near Springfield, Nebraska. The legend had it that a ghostly figure known as the Whistler could be heard on the bridge during the darkest hours of the night. Locals claimed the Whistler's eerie tune was a prelude to tragedy. John parked his car, camera ready, and walked cautiously onto the bridge. As he stood in the middle of the bridge, the wind whistled through the trees, creating an otherworldly melody. The air grew colder, and he could hear faint whispers in the breeze. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end, and John was certain he wasn't alone. The camera caught a shadowy figure moving closer and closer, but as he turned to face it, the figure vanished into thin air. It was a relief to leave the bridge behind, but the eerie experiences were far from over. John's next stop was Hester's mansion, an imposing, long-abandoned Victorian mansion rumored to be haunted by the restless spirit of its original owner, Samuel Hester. As he cautiously entered the mansion, the atmosphere grew oppressive, and the mansion's creaking floors echoed with each step. The interior was filled with tattered, cobweb-covered furniture like relics from a long-forgotten era. John explored room after room, feeling the presence of an otherworldly force that left his skin crawling. It was in the grand ballroom that he heard a faint piano playing, its eerie melody sending chills down his spine. The camera captured nothing but the empty room. Leaving the mansion, John's final stop was the infamous Hitchhiker's Highway near Lincoln. Legend had it that the ghost of a man who met an untimely end while hitchhiking could still be seen wandering the road, desperately searching for a ride. John parked his car and waited in the eerie silence. As the minutes passed, he felt a cold breeze pass through the car and a shape emerged from the darkness. It was the ghostly figure of a man, his thumb outstretched as if still trying to hitch a ride. John's camera captured the spectral hitchhiker, but as he reached out to open the door, the figure dissipated like smoke. Haunted and exhausted, John returned to the highway, the weight of the night's events pressing upon him. The camera had captured moments that defied explanation, but the inexplicable was what he sought after all. As he drove away from the haunted stretches of Nebraska's eerie highways, he couldn't shake the feeling that the spirits of the past were closer than he'd ever imagined. That chilling October night had changed John forever, and his YouTube video, Midnight Mysteries, Haunted Highways of Nebraska, would forever stand as a testament to the inexplicable and the terror that awaited those who dared to venture into the heart of America's heartland, where the roads twisted, the whispers lingered, and the ghosts of the past refused to rest. So, dear viewers, as you embark on your own October night drive through the heartland of the United States, remember that the winding roads of Nebraska, the haunted bridges, and the spectral hitchhikers are not mere stories. They are real, they are waiting, and they will forever haunt your memories. Drive safely and tread lightly on the haunted highways of America. And so, our scary stories comes to an end. The shadows recede, the whispers fade. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.